Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the week that was. This is Saeed Khan hosting another week of quite a bit of news happening on the international, national, and local levels. But certainly, there's been one story locally that has really been on our minds, and so we will go ahead and explore that, perhaps even for the better part of the show. Joining us today, we have, of course, veteran journalist Nancy Derringer. We have PR specialist David Rudolph. We have attorney Mike Rataj. We have broadcasting from the MSU campus today, Detroit Free Press investigative columnist ML Elrick, and of course, co-founder of Headline Detroit, Allan Lengel. Michigan State University became yet, unfortunately, another statistic. Now we are up to 71 mass shootings in the United States in a year that is still quite young, only 7 weeks into it. In the aftermath, we have 43-year-old Anthony Dwayne McCrae, who shot up both Berkey Hall and the MSU Union, leaving behind three students who unfortunately lost their lives: Alexandria Bernier of Clawson, Brian Frazier, and Ariel Henderson of Grosse Pointe. Five other students injured, one now upgraded to stable condition, the other four in critical condition. A campus, a state, and a culture reeling from what has happened. So I am just simply going to open it up to anyone who would like to go ahead and take any perspective on the MSU issue here. David.
Sorry. Go ahead, Dave. This has just been something that's been close to the heart. I'm a Spartan dog. My beloved school. We're hurting right now in Spartan Nation. This was number one. It was just an absolute shock for me to see this, to see this play out in East Lansing. Again, this is just one of those things where you think that it'll never happen in the places that you call familiar, and yet here we are again with another mass shooting. Gun violence, mental wellness, all on the table, or at least to talk about this. But right now, this is just one of those tragic things that has happened, and we're still just trying to catch a sense of, why and how and all of this. And it's really going to change the dynamic, I think, of many things that happen on directly, the reactions, the post reactions at MSU. It's going to be very interesting to see how these things play out. But I'm very saddened it's what happened. It has been a tough week for me.
Allan, you're also an alum.
I also am an alum. I think here's an opportunity. The Michigan legislature is Democratic now. We've got a Democratic governor. Michigan needs to lead the way and start doing something about. It's not about the Second Amendment, taking away the Second Amendment, taking away the rights of people, but it's about so many. I've covered so many, and so many of these tragedies for the Washington Post, and then I was a retainer at ABC News, and we did all these things, and so often these guys would buy the guns like 2 weeks before, a day before. We have to figure out a better way. I mean, our system is so set up, you can order guns, put together guns online. We need to be more aggressive. People say, well, there's so many guns out there. How can you do that? But, you got to start somewhere. It has to start somewhere. I don't think we need assault rifles, first of all. This was not, the guy used a 9mm this time, but I think we've got to figure out ways to change the dynamic here. We can't keep going on. There's going to be something tomorrow. There's going to be something 3 days from now. America has a sickness and it won't admit to it,
Allan, I want to say is that I think, in addition to that, these issues happen, these incidents happen, and there's always some little canary in the coal mine that seems to we find out after the fact that was there. When I read that story about the comments from his father, the father that said that, that quoted his evil and progressively showing signs of being, very disturbed after, I guess, the loss of the death of his mother. I come back to a point where I think that along that we need to have tighter, gun control sort of legislation. We also need to find ways to make this the stigma of mental health, behavioral health, getting because this may not have happened if this individual, some of these issues may have been addressed. And again, when I hear that, and this guy already was showing some signs beforehand, was it isolated? I mean, somebody out there knew that possibly that this guy was going to, in a mental state that possibly could do something. We don't know all of the facts about all of that, but what I'm saying is that rarely do you after the fact, when we sort of triage what happens, there's always something else there that shows that there's an individual that's very capable or possible of doing something like that. We're just looking at the end result.
I just want to say that, one of the unfortunate symptoms of many mental illnesses is the person who's mentally ill doesn't think they're mentally ill. They think that the rest of us are crazy, or that they have a legitimate grievance against the world or whatever. So, all the lip service that's going to be paid, that's been paid already, and there has been a considerable amount of it about mental health and about, whatever, the specialness of the MSU campus, all that stuff. It's all falls away, because if MSU is so special that this is such a shock, then what was a grade school classroom in Newtown, Connecticut 10 years ago? I mean, this is about guns. It's about guns. And I'm with Allan. It's like, you're never going to be able to stop these things 100%. But if you start with what, we've come to call common sense, gun regulation, waiting periods, red flag laws, all that stuff, I think we can at least begin to make a dent. Go ahead, Emma.
I was listening on Monday, or I should say on Tuesday, to as I was going to the gym in the morning, a prominent voice on one of the major AM radio stations with his usual morning show. And he was talking, of course, about mental illness, and he was preempting the discussion of saying, there are going to be people who are going to try to politicize this, and they're going to make it political, and they're going to talk about gun control. Isn't opposing gun control a form of mental illness?
Yeah, at this point, I think I know who you were talking about, because I heard the same thing. And
he also has a penchant for roofing, given the commercials locally.
Oh, okay, then we're listening to somebody else. But
no, same guy.
The other thing that was said over and over is, if we'd only enforced the laws that we already have on the books, well, maybe Mike can talk a little bit about this as a criminal defense lawyer, but if you locked up every first-time offender on a gun charge in, maxed out their sentence, I think we would have, number one, overcrowded prisons. We would also have a lot of people who are carrying a felony around the rest of their life, like a ball and chain. And it's just, I can't get with that either. So,
Mike, what about this dichotomy that's thrown out about good guys being allowed to have guns, not the bad guys? I mean, isn't it that as soon as a person pulls the trigger, they become a bad guy, and at that too late?
Oh, look, that's all bullshit. Okay. You gotta. There's two things. First of all, we need to have sensible gun legislation in this country, okay? And secondly, there's no reason for a citizen to have a military assault weapon or a magazine that has 100 rounds capability. I mean, I was in the Marine Corps. We had M16s. I was a machine gunner. Those guns are only designed to kill as many people as fast as possible. You don't need an M16 to harvest a deer. You don't need an M16 to harvest an elk, or an AR-15, I guess. But it's all bullshit. I mean, I'm sick and tired of, we need to do something. We need to do something, and nothing ever gets done. I got it's too bad that you couldn't take all these assholes in Congress that wrap themselves around in the Second Amendment and take them to the morgue and see what these children look like after they've been butchered by an AR-15.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they might change their mind. Maybe.
This wasn't an AR-15 shooting, but
was during the State of the Union, those assholes wearing AR-15 pins on their lapel or on their tie. And none of them ever served in the military. None of them have any idea what an AR-15 can do to somebody. So take them to the morgue next time we have a mass shooting and let them see what those people look like laying on a slab after they've been butchered by a military assault weapon.
right.
Well, I mean, the big
never going to stop crazies, okay? Because guns are out there. But
well, apparently,
no reason for us to have military assault weapons. You got to have a waiting period. We've got to have some kind of sensible gun legislation in this country. And, I mean, it's the same thing. I mean, you see, up in Michigan State, everybody comes together and lays flowers and lights candles. And how many times have we seen it?
A million times.
Since Columbine.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just
Well,
it's like a broken record.
Mike, Mike, I love what you said about that. You would have thought, and I'm all for, put them all on a bus, and absolutely let them, go to the morgue and see exactly what that looks like. We would have thought, correct me if I'm wrong, is it 2016 when actually you had a shooter that was actually shooting at congressmen that were having a baseball game? You would have thought that they would have been much more personable at that time, that they would have taken something seriously, and yet nothing.
Well, of course they're not going to do anything because they are beholden to the NRA. Okay?
Well,
and their constituents.
The bump stock, in Las Vegas, when the guy had a bump stock on his assault weapons, turned it into automatic weapons, there was such a pushback. The ATF moved to make it illegal. There was such a pushback by the NRA and all these other organizations to keep that legal, when all it did was convert a gun into a machine gun, which is illegal. And I don't get the stupidity and why we tolerate that.
Given that this was not an AR-15 mass shooting, and we're already into well-trod territory, and we have not heard from the person who is actually there in East Lansing right now, maybe ML might have something to say.
Yeah,
ML.
So over my shoulder is Sparty, where you do see all the flowers laid, and I'm sorry I was late getting here. I stopped by the Rock, which was a very difficult place to be, because there's a shrine there, and there are people just walking by and looking at it, and nobody's saying anything because there's nothing that can be said. And I went by Berkey Hall, where I took classes from my freshman year to my senior year, also known in East Lansing as a fifth year. We're not in a hurry to get out of here.
I'm guilty of that. I'm guilty of that as well.
ML, were you a red shirt academic? Is that what you were?
I was. Mike got thrown off the hockey team. They wouldn't even let me in the building. So no, I was strictly here as a guy who snuck in. But I am here to make it political. And I don't want to hear people say this isn't about politics. Politics is about solving problems. Politics is about people. And if politics doesn't solve our problems, then we don't need politics. And the hell with any politician who's not doing anything, because it's too late to stop the next shooting. But it's not too late to stop the one after that, or the one after that, or the one after that. We've got to start right now. And this is ridiculous. Yes, this guy had 2 9mm, but he had a gun offense on his record. How can a guy with a gun offense on his record legally purchase a weapon? I don't believe that owning a gun is a right. I believe it's a privilege. And when you can't follow the rules, you forfeit that privilege. And if it is a right, it should be a right that you have to prove that you can practice responsibly. My daughter was on lockdown till 1 a.m. here, and there was nothing I could do. There's nothing anybody could do. And this is enough. It finally came to Michigan, like, oh, I got to Oxford. It's like, well, okay, there's 50 states. Eventually it's going to get here. Well, now it's here in East Lansing. Where's the next one going to be? It's happening too often. It's happening too close to home. And if you went to office and all you're going to do is sit there and put money in Wayne LaPierre's pocket well, you can go straight to hell, and I'll be happy to hold the door for you.
So I want to pick
Well,
up on that thing about the NRA. Sorry, Alan, and one of our regular viewers and listeners asked the question that the NRA has its lowest membership in years and is perhaps close to bankruptcy. Is it true that perhaps it's only Russian money keeping it afloat? Is that true or not? Anyone know?
Well, they
Who
sure
knows?
like that hot-looking Russian chick when she came to their conventions, right?
Maria Butina. Yes, she was.
Yeah, their
Just
little guns got excited, and then they went home and grabbed their big guns.
just to elaborate
Now,
a bit,
the average size of guns apparently has gone up 20% in the last 30 years, but that's a whole different show.
I was just going to elaborate a little bit on what Mike says. We always are saying, "Oh, I can't believe it happened here and it happened here." I mean, I go to the grocery store all the time now, and I think, sometimes, hey, somebody can walk in here and just go crazy. You go to the mall, you say somebody could just go crazy. You go to the movie theater, somebody could just go crazy. I mean, it can happen anywhere. We've seen it's not, and it's interesting. And David and I were briefly speaking about this. For a long time, it was just crazy white people. Now it's black people. Now it's Asian people, but it's still all men, which is interesting. It's not, and the question is, why do women not express the rage in the way that men express that rage?
Well, as the token woman here, I'm going to say we're not that crazy, but go ahead.
I was going to say, as the token Muslim, hold my coffee, but one thing that I was, I suppose, pleasantly surprised with is that pushing back on this antidote that the anti-gun control folk have of immediately reverting to thoughts and prayers. And it was House Majority Whip Rajiv Puri from Canton who wrote a fairly strident remark when he said, "Fuck your thoughts and prayers."
On state letterhead.
On state letterhead. And it's interesting to see the pearl clutching and the pushback that he got there. But could this be, well, that's what he was saying. You're just stealing his line. But is this then the kind of moxie that is going to have a multiplier effect?
I've been hearing fuck your thoughts and prayers for at least a dozen mass shootings now, and maybe more. I don't know. What it's going to take is somebody's going to have to get off square one. And if it starts in Lansing, God bless us. I hope it does. And just start pushing this stuff through. I mean, I don't want to hear any talk about bipartisanship on this one, because it's very clear that this is a unipartisan issue. Gun control, and if that's the case, we have the majority. Elections have consequences. You've got power, use it. So,
right,
David
40 years.
No,
David
nailed it. A Republican leader got shot by a guy who was mentally ill, who was a Democrat.
Yeah.
What more do we need to bring people together? You got to be kidding me. A Republican who gets shot by a Democrat isn't for gun control?
Right.
I mean, there's no hope. Turn him out.
He's for Democrat control. Yeah, exactly.
Well, either that or he saw it as, Democrats are basically the droids of the Republic. I mean, that was an anomaly. Most of them aren't ones who are going to. Go ahead.
It's always interesting that these issues become so partisan. It's like pollution. We see cancer has increased by so many leaps and bounds, and yet it's a Democratic issue to be pro, control the environment, be careful about the environment, about not dumping chemicals into our waters, into our wells, and all that kind of stuff. I don't get how it becomes, even the vaccine became a political issue there. I don't understand how, particularly health issues, and this is a health issue, how that becomes a Democrat or Republican issue.
ML, you mentioned that your daughter was in lockdown, and I'm so glad that she's safe. I've seen reports of the number of Oxford students who graduated and are at Michigan State. One student who was interviewed had lived through Sandy Hook. What is the mood of this generation? I mean, I'm hearing reports that it's so embedded in their psyche.
I mean, I just read a story in the Macomb Daily about a kid who grew up in Carlsbad, California, where there was a shooting when she was in elementary school, and her freshman year, there's a shooting here. I mean, there's no escaping this. So I got up here last night.
Oh,
I think you muted out there, ML.
we're losing. I think he
Yeah.
just doesn't have enough bandwidth on his
Sorry.
phone.
Oh, there we go.
Go
There we
ahead.
Yeah, it's too many Republican thoughts and prayers on the internet here. But
Anyway, go ahead.
But I came up last night to take my daughters to dinner, and I teach here on Friday, so I was going to check in on a few things. And they didn't want to go down Grand River Avenue. My daughter, who was under lockdown, wanted to go to the vigil, but then she felt like she just might not be able to handle it. A lot of these kids are very sensitive, and I don't want to say they're fragile, but they're way attuned to things that we weren't really attuned to. So they're already very acutely aware of what's going on.
Right.
And then you throw something like this in the middle of it. I mean, it's incredible. It's the state news had an editorial that said we're not ready to go back to school on Monday,
Right.
and I think we have to listen to them because on Monday I would have told my girls, don't worry about this. I can't tell them that ever again, and someone's taken that from me, and that person's gone, and I'm not going to mourn them too much, although I think they were probably someone who deserved our help before this incident. But now it's up to those of us who are in a position to do something about it, to speak out, to cast votes that make a difference, to do something other than pretend that this is going to get better while we debate whether or not you should be able to have as many guns, as many bullets, and do whatever the hell you want with them. I respect hunters. I respect gun owners. But the people who sell guns, somebody better take a look at them. Because this shouldn't be about profit. And if you think it's about profit, well, maybe somebody should sue you so that it doesn't become so profitable anymore.
Mm-hmm. Somebody that I know pointed out to me, she said, every time somebody says, why are kids so depressed? Why are they so withdrawn now? She's like, since they have been in kindergarten, we have been making them drill for the day that they will be sacrificed on the altar of the Second Amendment. And, I didn't really know what to say to that. She was absolutely right. So, I'm not surprised your daughter is sensitive.
You took the words out of my mouth.
Yeah, she understands what we don't. Go ahead. Sorry, Mike.
First and second and third graders, participating in active shooter drills.
Yeah.
I mean, what kind of country is this?
It's a fucked up country.
And Congress these fucking asshole Republicans can't see what's going on in this country. The only thing they see is votes and their constituents and the NRA. That's it.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting.
They don't care about children. They don't care about kids having to participate in active shooter drills. I mean, I'm old, man. I remember when we used to have to get under the desk and pretend that there was a nuclear bomb coming. Okay, but I mean, But it
was theoretical then.
It was theoretical. Now
nobody was raining. Nobody was. Right. Yeah, right.
That's right. I mean, but can you imagine first and second graders having to participate in active shooter drills? I mean, I can't even wrap my head around it.
I know.
I don't know, Nancy. The day after was pretty real for me. But yeah, ML.
Yeah, I've sat through that training for the active shooter stuff. And you want to know why our kids are traumatized? What we show them that they can do to save their lives is traumatizing. To think, I didn't want to go to first grade because I had a bad haircut one time. If you told me I could stay out of school because I was afraid somebody was going to come in and murder me, I wouldn't have got to second grade. We are killing our kids, and we're letting other people kill them.
You think of the psyche of these children who are not only dealing with this on a constant basis now, more and more shootings at schools, but also COVID. I mean, the fear that is instilled with these kids really in the last few years, traumatized by COVID, traumatized by all these shootings. We wonder what the long-lasting impact is going to be.
So it's interesting you say that, Alan. I remember talking to some kids and who were in my class, and they said that they actually felt safer with COVID because at least it got them to stay at home away from school.
Wow.
I mean, just think about how warped that lens then has to be, that they're worried about a pandemic, or less about a pandemic, even at a time when there were no vaccines, and how it had really disrupted their lives. But at least they didn't have to go to school every day and wonder if that's it. So I think that's where we are as a country. Just having come back from Pakistan, we were given a briefing at the U.S. consulate in Karachi. And it's interesting that over there, they made sure to mention Danny Pearl. And they said, you know, you need to know this. You need to know that was kidnapped and beheaded 20 years ago. We're just putting that out there. It turned out that the bigger fear was E. coli and amoeba infections. But what does it say then that we have also kind of created this fear industry? I mean, in the case of Alice and in these trainings, well, there's obviously a reason we're now averaging 10 mass shootings a week in 2023. But what does it do to the overall psyche? I mean, these are going to be young kids who are going to become adults and older people.
It makes them afraid and frightened people by guns. I mean, fear is the greatest weapon Madison Avenue ever wielded. And even though they're not, I mean, you know, Smith & Wesson is not taking out ads saying, are you afraid of being in a mass shooting? Buy a gun so you can defend yourself. Their mouthpieces and the puppets who speak for them are certainly saying that. And, you know, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, you know, people who are scared are likely to do that. Reach for a gun, start carrying it around. There you go.
Well, they really don't need to do any advertising if they've got these sort of unpaid endorsers like Lauren Boebert and people in Congress doing their bidding.
Right. That's my point. So,
you know, there's a lot of stress that one will carry if in this age now, especially with young people and concerned about, you know, violence and where that may show up. I'm gonna make an example because, you know, I'm a native Detroiter guy. You know, when I walk into restaurants, I never, you know, or any public place, I'm always aware where the door is. I never have my back to it. I carry a sense of always my head on a swivel. And it's actually the same terminology that I use with my daughter, who I'm trying to raise in such a way that I think I've wanted to create a bubble so that it would, you know, that she didn't have to feel the sort of stress that I carry every day, because I grew up, you know, in a city that at the time it was the murder capital of America, and that was real. And, you know, and for the neighborhood that I lived in, that was very much real. And so, you know, all of my life, those sort of instinctual sort of techniques of survival have stayed with me no matter where. As a matter of fact, you know, no matter where I go when I leave this city, I can be in I can be in Tennessee, and I'm still, you know, bringing that with me. And that's the kind of thing in terms of the sense of fear that we've created, you know, not created. It's real, because now there's no place that is safe from the real world. You know, those used to be, you know, it used to be a time of innocence where, you know, this just happened in the streets. Now, you know, you can't be at, you know, at a faith base, you know, in a church, or, you know, you can't be in a public space. You can't be in a school. You can't be in a daycare. It comes at any place at any time, you know. And now, you know, we're faced with it here in Michigan, but the reality is that it starts to erode, I think, in just your sense of security and belief in people in general.
Hey, as to say real quick about, and David, again, we talked about this a little bit yesterday. You know, we've for decades and decades and decades, there's been violence in the Black community, in urban areas where shooting after shooting, and we tolerate that. We've tolerated, if you collectively see how many people have been shot and wounded, how many people die each year, and we've put up with that. We've tolerated it. Now it's spilled over into all these other places of society. We have so many different components, and we're still tolerating it beyond, like I say, Newtown, Connecticut. If dead, children doesn't move the needle, what does? What does move the needle?
Well,
You
look
know,
at what Alex Jones did. I mean, he actually, went on and doubled down and said it didn't happen. I mean, this is the depravity that's there. So, ML, I think you had your hand up there.
Well, I just want to change the topic for a minute because I think cancer is a big problem, right? Do you hear anybody saying we need more cancer? But guns are a problem, and we hear people saying we need more guns. Somebody painted the rock here and said, let us defend ourselves. Well, I think
what a great idea.
Mike, I'm sure, has been on a shooting range. I've been on a shooting range. I don't know if anybody else has been on a shooting range, but let me tell you something. Okay.
I have.
Okay, so there's most of us have been on there, and then Nancy she does more grenade work. But the thing is, when you see people on a shooting range, not everybody's putting them in the bullseye. Okay, so now you got a room full of people who aren't squared up, who don't have their feet planted, who have adrenaline coursing through their blood, who don't know where the danger is coming from, and they reach and they pull and they're throwing shots. More guns, arming everybody is not the answer. Right. That is not going to do it. If this room full of Berkey Hall kids had started throwing lead, they'd all be dead.
Exactly. And so imagine if the police had walked in the middle of that and seen 8 people standing around with
guns.
Yeah,
well, that's another concern. I mean, the cops don't know who the bad guys are if everybody's carrying guns. But you go to Florida, you go to Texas, they want more guns in the schools. They want teachers armed. It's so stupid. It doesn't make any fucking sense. And I don't think this is going to change until we're all dead. And the kids that are in school that are growing up that have lived through this, they're going to be the ones to change it.
I have to say, I was kind of moved yesterday by the kids who went to the Capitol and actually lined up in formation the way they have been drilled about active shooter drills forever. I thought that was a powerful image. And
look at the kids. Look at the kids. What they did after the shooting down in Marjorie Stoneman Douglas at the school. Right. They were all they were all activists. They were all getting involved. But nothing's changed. Nothing's changed, and it's not going to change it to those kids.
Well, Marjorie adults. Taylor Greene chased David Hogg around Washington.
Yeah, I mean, somebody should put a bullet in her fucking head.
One thing I would have liked to have asked those kids who went down to the Capitol is how many voted in the last election. Right. Because I think that's the other thing is these demonstrations are great. We can all do that overnight, but you got to register to vote, and you got to vote. And young people really don't vote. And I'll tell you, as someone who was recently a candidate, when we're looking at these lists of who votes, that's whose doors we knock on. And if I met somebody who was under the age of 50, and I knocked on a lot of doors, that was a very special day. So these kids, to save their own lives, they got to register, they got to vote, and they got to pound the hell out of these people who think that they should be left vulnerable for human sacrifice because Wayne LaPierre needs another tailored suit, needs a vacation on another island, needs to drink another bottle of wine that costs more than the car I'm sitting in. Right. Vote these mother scratchers out as soon as possible. They will get the message because they don't get the campaign contributions if they're not in office.
Well, okay, we lost ML.
So here's a scenario for you. Last summer, the U.S. Supreme Court decided to flout stare decisis and case precedent by overturning Roe v. Wade.
Right.
One day, perhaps sooner rather than later, the majority of the court will swing to the other side of the political aisle. Now that the Supreme Court has gone ahead and shown that past precedent really doesn't amount to a hill of beans, is it possible then that a center-left court will come in and eviscerate the Second Amendment? And is that necessarily a good thing?
It's not even eviscerating the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment doesn't stand for what these idiots claim it stands for. Okay? And Oliver Wendell Holmes said a long time ago that it's the business of the law to draw lines. Okay? You can't own a bazooka. You can't own an M60 machine gun. You can't own a 50 caliber machine gun. Okay? So why should you be able to have an AR-15? I mean, look, we got to get rid of these military assault weapons. We did at one time until Bush became president, and of course, he did away with the Brady Act. We need sensible gun legislation, and we got to get rid of these loopholes. You got to get rid of these damn gun shows, because that's where a lot of these dumbasses buy these guns.
He bought Andrew McRae bought his at a pawn shop, I believe. So
yeah, 2 weeks earlier.
Yeah.
Either way, you don't need a military assault weapon. The Second Amendment doesn't say that. Okay, it doesn't say that.
No,
So
I agree.
They politicized the Second Amendment, and this goes back to when Warren Burger was the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, and he had wrote an article on how the right is politicizing and the Second Amendment, and this is going back to the early '70s, and he was right.
Mm-hmm.
Which is right around the time that the NRA took quite a turn. Well, changing subjects then and changing topics. Apparently, gun control hasn't really been a major priority for the Biden administration, as it has been shooting objects out of the sky.
And we do have a video here. Started out.
Oh, yeah.
I wonder if it's a clip from Jimmy Kimmel. Go ahead.
Acting FAA Administrator Billy Nolan testified before the Senate yesterday on the agency's handling of recent near collisions at airports and assured Americans that flying is safe. I don't know. At this point, the best you can say is that it's safer than traveling via balloon. I would not want to travel via balloon right now.
Well, we had one that was a little bit closer to home.
It wasn't even that funny, but go ahead.
It's cute.
Lake Huron being the site of one of these particular incidents, have we just gone into balloon hysteria or UFO hysteria in this country?
I think there's so much pressure.
Yes.
There's so much pressure to shoot everything out of the sky now. After that balloon, people were screaming, "What are we late? Why are we shooting it down now? Why?" And so now everything's like, "Hey, watch out!" Before you know, we'll be shooting Delta airline planes out.
Did you hear that idiot Trump Jr.?
I'm actually surprised at the amount of things that are floating up there. I mean, until the Chinese balloon flew across, it never occurred to me that there's. There appears to be there's all types of weather balloons and all kind of other things that's floating up there. And now we're all aware that there's more than just, birds and airplanes and helicopters in the sky.
I have to wonder. Yeah, exactly. I have to wonder. Like the thing over Lake Huron, we still don't know what that was because it landed in the water and it sank.
We don't know the one over Alaska. We don't know what that one was either.
Yeah,
what did Trump Jr. say?
Prudhoe Bay.
Mike, what did Trump Jr. say?
He said that they should the people in Montana should get their guns out and shoot up in the sky.
Oh, what a great idea! Yeah, right. Okay.
I heard Sarah Palin was concerned about that balloon that they launched from Puerto Rico, which is right across from Alaska.
That piece of shit, J.D. Vance, who is the reason that I'm telling all my Ohio friends, you guys elected J.D. Vance, you deserve to lose the Michigan game. But anyway, J.D. Vance posed with his big bang bang aiming at the sky too. It's just ridiculous. But I don't know. I mean, the one we know that the one that we shot down over South Carolina over the coastline there was in fact some kind of surveillance device. But I don't have no idea what this thing. I was reading about the radio traffic between if was an F-15, F-22 pilot, and the tower, and he's like, I have no idea what this thing is, but I'm going to shoot it anyway. So,
well, go ahead.
This may be a coincidence, but I haven't heard from Phineas Fogg since last week.
Well, funny you mentioned that, ML, because also that comet that only comes around once every 50,000 years is also gone. So I don't know if somebody shot that puppy out of the sky as well.
Listen, the Chinese have been using these balloons for a long time because they're cheaper, than putting a satellite up in the sky. So, I mean, during the Trump administration, I guess there were 3 balloons that flew over the United States. And, of course, we don't hear the Republicans crying about Trump not shooting this thing down.
No, of course not.
But the Chinese have been doing this for a long time. And it's really not a secret. Now, some of these other things that we've just shot down recently, we don't know what the hell they are. But yeah, the Republicans want us to shoot it down over, these things. I guess the Chinese balloon was like, the infrastructure of it is like 2 school buses. I mean, can you imagine shooting that down over the continental United States and having it rain down on people?
Right.
I mean, so they waited until it got out in the ocean and they whacked it. Big deal.
Yeah.
2
What's the
school
rules,
buses
what's
is
the rules of engagement when it comes to
out there anyways. So
what's the rule of engagement when it comes to airspace versus and satellites and balloons? I'm more questioning, like, there's a lot of things floating around us. At what point does it become?
So sovereign territories, everything that goes vertical above your borders as well. So technically speaking, anything that comes crosses a line is fair game. Back in 1983, the Soviet Union downed a Korean Airlines flight that mistakenly. It was a 747 flight 007, as a matter of fact, KAL, that crossed over into Soviet airspace. They didn't even hesitate to go ahead and knock it out of the sky.
Could not tell a fucking commercial airliner from an enemy, whatever. I mean, especially
that would be the U.S. naval vessel in the Persian Gulf back in '88 that took out the Iran airplane. So not sure if that was a rhetorical question there, Nancy, but I thought I would convert it to metric for you.
I remember when that happened. The Korean Airlines thing. Hundreds of people died.
There are, of course, rules and there are treaties that say you can't take something out that goes all the way up into outer space. But as far as if it does cross into airspace, but you said 2 school buses. That's like 2 Partridge Family mobiles. Just to give a bit of context. Well, one possible theory about the South Carolina one was that it was actually Trump Jr. who was spying on Nikki Haley, given the fact that she seems to be competition for Daddy Dear. Yes, Nikki Haley, former governor of South Carolina, born Namrata Nikki Randhawa, also Trump's former U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, has declared herself to be a candidate for 2024. Only the second official Republican to announce such, the other, of course, being the man in orange. What does one make of her candidacy?
I think that she and Perry Johnson are going to go head to head, and we'll see. May the best person win. I think she's running for vice president. I'm sorry. What'd you say?
I can't wait to watch all these idiots eat each other up.
I think Trump still has a great chance, only because there's going to be so many people cannibalizing each other. He's got his base, whatever it is, 25, 30% of the party, maybe greater. These people, it's interesting. I mean, Ron DeSantis, everyone says he's the guy, but I think Trump can still beat them all.
He'll be under indictment by then.
Yes, right. I was going to say that.
That would be nice.
That'd be nice.
Well, I want to see Trump grab her by the primary.
I wonder what his nickname's going to be for her. He hasn't come up with it.
I was just thinking the same thing. Gotta be careful there, Chumpy.
There's Prince, I think, settled that with Darling Nikki off Purple Rain, but that might have meant something entirely different.
I think it did.
Ann Coulter apparently emerged from whatever bunker she's been in for the last few years, and apparently told Nikki, hey, you should go back to your own country. Of course, Nikki Haley is a natural-born U.S. citizen, born in South Carolina. And yet here we find then that the immigrant card is being played alive and kept alive and well by Republicans. She even said that she'd be surprised if she got more than 2% of the vote. So
that's rich,
I guess
because I think Ann Coulter's from Transylvania, isn't she?
Well, I think Ann Coulter also had a long-term relationship with, you guessed it, an Indian. So
Dinesh D'Souza.
Did you know she went to the University of Michigan Law School?
And she did. She's a Michigan grad.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. And there's one assistant United States attorney who actually worships her. Okay. And,
Really?
Yeah, and whenever I have a case with her, I constantly give her shit about, I just irritate the crap out of her with politics. And, Ann Coulter should be dropped in the middle of Milan prison, for example. That's a good one, too.
They talk a lot, the crueler commentary about Ann Coulter is that she looks like a transgender woman. So,
she's a vile human being.
She really is. She is vile. She's just realized that there's money to be made by being an asshole, and she happily dives after the.
But what happens to these people? That's what I want to know. I mean, where do they get this shit?
Well, the way she smokes, I think she'll eventually die of lung cancer. Right. But
not soon enough.
I got a question. I see Mike sitting there. I see people walking by. Curious, what's the environment like right now on camp? Are there people out going shopping? Is the campus pretty empty?
Yeah, for a Friday, it's very quiet, but I am by Sparty, and the people you see over my shoulder are coming to one of the makeshift memorials where I see a lot of young people laying bouquets of flowers. I see older folks coming by. I am in the parking lot at Spartan Stadium, so I can see some of their license plates, and there's a lot of personalized MSU plates. So there are a lot of Spartans coming to campus to pay their respects. And I was talking to the editorial advisor of the State News this morning, and she said at the vigil, there were not a ton of students, but there were a lot of people from the community. There were a lot of alumni. And I think a lot of people are coming back to campus to just sort of get in touch with this. And I was surprised at how overcome I was when I was over by the Rock, because it's, that's a place where people go to celebrate things. And it is just, it's a beautiful day. I don't know if you can tell, but the sun is just beaming down on us, but it's it's very solemn, and it's very desolate in spite of all the beauty that there is on this campus.
I know a lot of students have already gone home, and I was talking to someone whose kid was trying to get home, and they said that the exits off I-96 and I-69 were totally backed up, almost like it was a football game, as parents were trying to come in and pick up their kids and bring them home for a few days. So,
and are the dorms open? Can kids stay in the dorms, or what?
I think so. Not everybody can get home.
I presume they are, but I don't know. I don't know what the cafeteria services are like, because a lot of kids work in those jobs, and
right.
And it's probably worth noting too that there are people like custodians here who did go right back to work. Not everybody's been able to take a break here, which is understandable. Somebody's got to do some of these things, but they were traumatized too. They were exposed as well. And there's a lot.
I think it should be said before we leave MSU behind us that I learned from reading the Detroit News this week that at least 2 of the wounded students who are in the hospital are Chinese nationals, which is very common at MSU and a lot of other Big Ten schools. They're admitting Chinese citizens, by the truckload because, for a lot of reasons. But so imagine how this is playing in China too. We send our smart young children over to learn, to get an American education, and this is what comes of it. So.
I think balloons. We're just shooting
balloons down.
Sorry.
Well, I think they have a pretty large contingent. I think 2,800 Chinese international students or something around that line at MSU, and you see similar numbers elsewhere. Yeah, I mean it's just got to be traumatizing. So that brings up this other question: that is the United States going to remain a destination for international students? I mean, it seems as though other places in the world are now picking up the slack quite well. I mean, Canada, Australia, New Zealand.
If you offered me the choice between Michigan State or McGill in Toronto, or is
Montreal.
it Toronto? Montreal.
Nancy, it's Montreal.
Sorry, or the University of Toronto, or the Sorbonne, or Cambridge or anything else, I would not be choosing East Lansing. And
Well, Nancy.
because-
Well, I noticed.
No.
I noticed you named quite a few party schools there, Nancy.
Yeah, not speaking as a Spartan, but there was a mass shooting at McGill. There was.
You're right.
There was a mass shooting in Paris, and Toronto had a guy driving through the crowd. So
you're right. Okay.
I'm going to encourage you to take the advice that David so wisely gave his daughter and keep your head on a swivel no matter where you're at.
That's probably true.
Right.
Yeah. I forgot about the one at McGill. That was the one that targeted women, right? That was one of these.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of these misogynist.
He was an
dickweeds.
incel before it was cool.
Yes, he was an incel before it was cool. Right.
All I know is, and I'm not a paid endorser, Nancy, but I went to the University of Sindh in Pakistan 2 weeks ago, and I'm back. So I'm just saying, if you, and you don't even have to learn Sindhi, they do speak English. Of course,
right.
it's kind of a stilted post-colonial British English.
Okay.
So yes, I'll train you.
Okay. Thanks.
I think with that, Alan, we're at that part of the show.
Alrighty.
Downtown Detroit, Robert Wells, Schmuck of the Week.
Oh, that's
Well-
my buddy Rob that parks my truck every day.
I know we've got plenty of schmucks here, so let's start. David, who's your schmuck of the week?
Oh, not me.
Oh, I know you're not the schmuck of the week, but do you have one?
Oh, I actually don't have a schmuck. Of the
Would
week.
you like to pass? We'll go to
I'll
ML.
punt.
We'll go to ML, and if you can't think of somebody by the end of this, I've got some backups. So
Okay.
ML,
I can give you one.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Mike.
go ahead, ML.
Oh, ML.
And anybody who says that the solution to this problem is more guns is the schmuck of the week, maybe the schmuck of the century.
Amen.
Okay,
Yeah.
Amen.
that is there, and I'm noticing a lot of people are lying low in a very craven way of making any statements. So
Yeah, more
Oh,
cancer, please.
yeah, all right,
Right on.
all right, Mike.
Well, I was having a conversation with my wife last night. We were watching MSNBC. Mike Pence, Ron DeSantis. Mike
Yeah.
Pence, Ron DeSantis. So if I had to pick one,
Eeny,
I'm
meeny,
going to
miny,
pick
moe.
Ron DeSantis, even though Pence is a major schmuck, okay? But let's go with Ron DeSantis, who's basically trying to whitewash history. Anybody who's ever read a history book knows that Black history is American history, and he's really a piece of shit, quite frankly. He hasn't done anything for the citizens of Florida. They're more afraid of trans people in Florida than they are of guns. How about that one?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and to whitewash history, the way that he's trying to do down there is ban books. Okay. I mean, and on and on and on. I can't stand a piece of shit. Can I go take a semi-automatic and put it to his head? Or would that be improper? I don't know.
Are you asking us or the magic 8 ball on your desk?
Anyways, Ron DeSantis.
Okay, but the way that you framed it, you said Ron DeSantis, Mike Pence. I thought you were actually predicting the 2024 Republican ticket.
Oh,
So-
Oh my
That's how
God.
stupid Pence is. Does he honestly think the people that wanted to hang his dumb ass are going to vote for him? Okay. All right.
Ask mother. Just ask mother.
Yeah, right.
Okay, Nancy.
Karen McDonald, Oakland County prosecutor.
Oh,
who
yeah, good one.
jumped on the bandwagon that has come up in the last few of these mass shootings, which is that we somehow must not speak the name of the person who did the shooting because it gives them notoriety and it leads to copycats and blah, blah, blah. I mean, I expect that from somebody who doesn't know much about these things, but I don't expect it from somebody who should know better. And I would say Karen McDonald. She and then she had her hashtags, no notoriety, don't name them, Spartans will. And so, I would only respond by asking how many times the name Ethan Crumbly has passed her lips.
Yeah,
But-
and try your case in the press while you're at it. Okay?
yeah, exactly.
You know,
So,
Ethan Crumley, permissible. Voldemort Crumley, not permissible.
not permissible, exactly.
Yeah,
right.
yeah. So I think that. By the way, if you are speaking about irony, I strongly recommend people watch 2 things. One on Netflix, Kunk on Earth, and the other is the latest South Park, which has Meghan and Harry, and their whole "We Want Our Privacy" world tour. Just absolutely brilliant. Okay, David, you have heard quite a few schmucks which should have inspired you and perhaps unlocked certain places in your mind and in your arsenal of anger. Do you have one? If not, you can keep punting.
I'm going to punt again.
Okay, Allan.
I am going with the Fox trio of Tucker Carlson and Sean Hannity and Laura Ingraham, who now it comes out in court records that they never believed that the election was stolen. That I think Tucker Carlson referred to Trump as demonic or whatever. I think those people get on night after night and pretend that they're speaking their mind, that they're speaking the truth, and they're speaking. Essentially, it just shows what frauds these people are. Mm-hmm. Schmucks, total schmucks.
Well, Andy Borowitz has said that Tucker Carlson fears that leaked texts of him telling the truth will kill his brand. So I think that there's certainly some truth in that. But this is in context, Allan, of the Dominion defamation lawsuit,
right,
which is still going forward. And some, I don't know, Mike, you might have a bit more read on this. It seems as though it's a little bit uncommon for a defamation case to go this far. Usually it's either tossed out because of the deference given to First Amendment, freedom of press, or because it's usually settled out. But it seems as though this thing still has legs.
Hey, I want them to win big. They ruined their entire country or company. I mean, who's even if this is, I mean, even if sensible heads prevail, what municipality is going to be able to get away with buying Dominion voting equipment in the future? I mean, we have it in Detroit, but there you go. So
Okay, David, do you have one? If not, I have one.
Give it to me.
Okay, this is on behalf of David Rudolph, his schmuck of the week by proxy. CNN morning co-host Don Lemon.
Don Lemon. Oh, I should have said
who actually took a day off today. I'm sure he was nudged in that direction. He was kicked off his primetime show because of low ratings, and he was then put on an ensemble morning show, flanked by two female co-hosts, Caitlin Collins and the other one. But apparently he was having a discussion about Nikki Haley, going after, in a case of blatant ageism, her recommendation that there be a mental competency test for running for president, which of course would be contingent on age and of course targeting both Donald Trump as well as Joe Biden. In response to that, with the, of course, allegation and inference made that these two people are past their prime, Don Lemon decided to say, well, if they're past their prime, she as a woman is past her prime. A woman's prime is in their 20s, 30s, and maybe 40s. And when, with the look of shock, his two female co-hosts were looking at him, he said, don't shoot the messenger. This is on Google. So apparently Chris Licht, the head of CNN, has had words with Don Lemon, and this isn't the first time. He has made his co-host storm off the stage or off the set on numerous times.
Don Lemon gay too?
He is.
That's what I thought. And it's like, where does he get off like talking about how hot women are? Come on, you know.
I think you have to ask the question of. Nancy, is he gay? Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. There's not that there's anything wrong with that. But
that goes. So, David, I hope I did justice to your schmuck of the week. All right, thank you. Well, now that leaves me with needing a schmuck of the week. So, I'm conflicted. I'm going to go local. The Hanover Horton Schools in Jackson, Michigan, where school officials deemed a picture drawn by a fifth grade daughter of Sierra Carter, quote, inappropriate after a boy in her class complained that she had drawn, quote, body parts drooping from a pig's neck, something the girl claimed was actually a necktie. Taking a look at the porcine portrait myself, I tried to shelve my Freud and give her the benefit of the doubt. But unfortunately, this poor girl, despite the fact that the school board said we are not putting anything in her permanent file, it is quite likely that this 11-year-old is now going to be traumatized, and I'm pretty sure that she's going to swear off bacon, which means that both Allan and I have potential converts to our religions for somebody who wants to avoid the pig. So Hanover Horton Schools, I think you're my schmuck of the week, but honorable mention, because I don't want people to think that we only target human beings as being schmucks. The other schmuck of the week is the unnamed cockerel that plunged its spur into the leg of experienced Irish bird handler Jasper Krause, age 67, causing him to have a heart attack brought about by the loss of several liters of blood. Here is an example of pernicious poultry actually causing somebody's fatality.
Lordy. Oh,
yes, I wish I had a name for this particular miscreant, but apparently in Ireland they do keep anonymous the names of suspects, human or foul. So
there you
go. The other schmuck of the week.
That's
listen,
3 schmucks. So your solution to too many schmucks is more schmucks?
ML, I think you should know us well by now that this is a schmuck control free zone. So listen, I want to thank all of you for being able to provide some levity on certainly what's been a very dark week locally. Hopefully something that our audience also enjoys and appreciates. We certainly weren't making light of anything that happened at Michigan State, and certainly our hearts are still with the entire community, both on campus and elsewhere, for what's going to be, I'm sure, quite a long healing process. Thank you, ML, certainly for being at Michigan State right now. Thank you, David Rudolph. Thank you, Mike Rataj. Thank you, of course, Nancy. And Allan with the last word.
Drive home safely.
Thank you, everybody, and have a great weekend.